For as long as anyone can remember, our community's been a place to gather, to work, to love, and to learn. The Brant Historical Society, their staff and exhibits, tell that story. Their mission is to collect, preserve, and share the history and heritage of Brantford Brant, Six Nations of the Grand River, and Mississaugas of the Credit. So today, I've invited Nathan Etherington, Program and Community Coordinator for the Brant Historical Society, to tell us more. Nathan, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So to get started, tell us a little bit about what the Brant Museum and Archives does.
Well, we're a fairly old institution, so we've been collecting artifacts for over 100 years. And a lot of those artifacts tell the stories of the entirety of Brant County. And so with our exhibits and the archives that we have, we're able to piece together pieces and bits of Brantford's history and share that with the community.
You said over 100 years?
Yeah, we were founded in 1908. So we're over 110, I think we're 114 years now. So, or in our 114th year. So we've been collecting since 1911.
So you've been collecting for that long, but how long have you been a museum of sorts that's been open to the public?
In our earliest years, we kind of just read papers. They did historical papers. And then after that, we had a partnership with the Brantford Public Library, and we moved into the basement of that building. And for a number of years there, that's where all the exhibits were that the museum had. And then in 1952, we purchased 57 Charlotte Street. And in 1952, we opened it, and we were one of the first museums to open kind of in that era.
That's amazing. And right now you're on Charlotte Street?
That's correct. Directly across from City Hall. Can't miss us.
Awesome. So tell us about your collection.
Yeah, so the collection, like I said, is very big. Earliest things, a lot of them are photos. So one of our earliest donors and founding members was Augusta Gilkison. You know, Gilkison Street in West Brant. That's her family. They lived there from very, very early, and they got land from John Brant, and that's why they kind of lived over there. But she donated the earliest thing to the collection that we still have and can still find, and it's simply a photo. And then after that, we progressed through time. We didn't do a whole lot of collecting because we were in someone else's space. But then in 1946, the Royal Ontario Museum decided that part of Pauline's collection from her sister Evelyn that was donated to them should be in the local area. So we were the only real museum-like institution around. So we accepted the Pauline Johnson collection in 1946, and it's still there, and we can find every single piece of it, which is great.
So is everything that the museum has on display?
No. Most museums estimate that they have about 90% of their collections in storage. So only 10% are on display at a time. However, in our situation, I think we're higher than the normal. So I would say probably close to 1/4% of the collection is actually on display.
So I have 3 follow-up questions regarding your collection. So first, what is, in your opinion, some of the must-see pieces?
Okay. So other than the Pauline Johnson stuff that I earlier alluded to, we also have a big stained glass window from the Watrous factory. Everyone knows Brantford as being a big industrial producer, manufacturer early on. And the Watrous company was one of the first companies that did that. They had their original factory where the new City Hall is going to be on the corner there of Queen and Dalhousie, the federal building. And then they moved in 1893 down to Market Street South. And at that time, they had a stained glass window made, and it hung in the lobby. And it shows the original factory, as well as the president at the time, which was Charles H. Watrous.
Wow.
Some of the other things we have is Louis Burwell, who was the original land surveyor. And we have all of his field diaries, and we've digitized those as well so that they're accessible to people who want to see them. So that's another really cool piece that we have.
So then the next question is, what would you think? I know that almost all of your pieces would be unique pieces, but what is something that you have at the museum that is truly unique?
Yeah. The best example I can think of for that is when the royal family first came to Canada for their first royal visit after the completion of the railroad. And because the railroad had just been completed, it was their first time to really see the entire country. So they wanted to tour by train, and they needed a train car. And the only place that could make a train car was in Brantford. So we have the picture of the rail car with this ornate wood piece that sat on top of it. And it is now in the museum. And it has apparently been on loan from the Dork Lodge since 1912.
That's so fascinating. So then my third question, and it wasn't in the script, what's your favorite piece? No pressure.
My favorite piece. There's a lot. I really like paper. I'm a paper person, kind of. So I'm working in the archives a lot. And one of the earliest maps of Brantford is the 1852 Marcus Smith map. And it shows the city in incredible detail. So it shows the outlines of buildings where buildings were, and some of those buildings are still there today. And it shows gardens where big rich people had big fancy Victorian gardens. And it really shows in a large section of the downtown. You get to see all the different little businesses along Colburn and Dalhousie Street. And we have one of the very, very few copies, original.
An original copy?
Yeah.
That's something that someone could come into the museum tomorrow and ask to see?
Yeah, especially because we've digitized a lot of the stuff. We are able to allow people to access the digital copy, and then the really rare 150-year-old thing that's not doing so well and maybe has some tears or things that could destroy the artifact. That doesn't happen because we're looking at the digital copy and we're preserving the original.
So it's a way to preserve history, but also share history with people who are interested.
Exactly. And that's why we're trying to digitize the archives.
I want to see it the next time I come into the museum, okay?
Deal.
Thank you. Okay, so, I mentioned, could someone come in tomorrow and see it? And, right now they couldn't because of the current situation we're in. So could you tell us a little bit about how the COVID-19 crisis has transformed the way you're operating and, what's next?
Yeah. So most museums across the province have been closed since the middle of March, and they haven't been open, and that means that they don't have revenue, and it's very difficult for them. And this was actually a really good opportunity for us. We're in the creative industry, so it's a good time for us to put on our creative outlet and think about different ways that we can do things. So originally I had applied for a summer student to give in-person programming every day. And we were going to have free events so that just anyone in the city could come and partake in them. And because of COVID, we then had to adapt and rethink about that. And I thought, how can we still do this? How can I still give a summer student a job? And then the idea came, why don't we just go online and just stream things through our Facebook page? And that will probably be the most accessible way to reach the largest number of people.
So what would you say is next for the museum?
So I also did hire someone else today. And so we're going to be doing some more programming through June online. So that's one thing coming up. We're also thinking about what to do if we are allowed to reopen and how we would limit the number of people that would come into the museum. We'd ask people to kind of make an appointment so that we can ensure there is a limited number of people within the building. We have a great use of technology in the museum. So we have these great screens, and they have a little microcomputer on the back of them, and it runs a presentation that has all the information that we would give you in a normal tour. So you're able to come, see, get the information, and then at the end of the tour, if you had any questions, we'd be able to answer those as well.
So no matter what happens, you're still going to be collecting, preserving, and sharing in any way possible.
We do our best with the resources that we have.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yep. Okay, so my next question, it might be a bit of a curveball, but what's something about the museum you think most people don't know, and what are other things that the museum offers to the public that is more than just coming in and seeing exhibits?
So the Brant Historical Society is the umbrella organization, and we have two locations. We have the Brant Museum and Archives, which is on Charlotte Street, and in around 2006, we entered into an agreement with the National Trust, and so we staff Myrtleville and operate Myrtleville, and that's where a lot of the children's programming and education programming happens. So that's a great asset to the city. So most people don't know that we actually run two different museums out of the same organization. Some of the other things that we do at the museum as well, we do have research requests. You can submit a research request on our website that prompts an email to go to us, and then we're able to look through our collection and let you know if we have anything that may be of use to you in the research that you're trying to do. The number one question we usually get is, what's the history of my house? So sometimes we have information about that. Sometimes we have photos of it. It's very rare that we have early photos of it, but we do have a rather large collection where a heritage person named Audrey Scott went around the city, and she literally photographed every building in the downtown core pretty much. So we have a good assessment of the city at one time, which is late 70s, early 80s.
So anyone can request to do research?
Yep. Yeah, it's a simple research request. And on the research form, you fill in as much information as you can, your contact information. And then there's a $20 an hour fee for research. And that basically goes to cover my time to go and search and find it if we have information for you.
That's really incredible. And I think it leads into my final question for you. And it's something that I asked all my guests. For as long as I can remember, I've been a huge history buff, and I love learning about architecture and street names and the stories behind things. And the work that you're doing and the team at the museum preserving our community's history, it's such a huge responsibility. So if somebody else is passionate about this and wants to support, to donate, to volunteer, to help your organization grow or get your message out, how does somebody get involved? Where do they go to donate? Tell me everything.
Okay, so our museum, brantmuseum.ca, is the best place to go for everything. There's actually, in the menu bar across the top, there's something called support. And in that, it has information on how you can donate to us, how you can become a member, as well as volunteering opportunities. So often out at Myrtleville, we have a lot of opportunity to do education programming with children. And that's where some people really find their niches, and they like experiencing and engaging and nurturing children. So oftentimes we'll send those people out to Myrtleville and get them to help Esther do things like Christmas programming. I need a lot of help in the archives because we're trying to digitize everything. So I have one volunteer that comes in, and she helps sort and number documents to organize them into a collection and an organized system. I have another volunteer, John, who is he's older than me and might be older than both of us put together, but he's still technologically savvy and he loves to learn new things. And then I take everything that they've done and I add it into our inventory system, so that when someone does one of those research requests and says, "Hey Nathan, do you have something about this?" I have an easy way of pulling the information out and connecting them with that information.
So there's plenty of ways people could be involved if they want to with the Brant County Museum and Archives.
Yes, and maybe when we get to the new normal and we're open again and we're allowed to give tours and physical distancing maybe isn't a thing anymore, we also have a docent program. So we'll teach you how to give a tour, and you can give tours to guests as they come in.
That's just awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview and to answer all of my questions, and for all of the hard work that you and your organization are doing for our community. It's amazing work, and kudos to you.
Yeah, we're trying to do our best to keep people's attention. Sometimes the news is not the best place to go for an uplifting story, so we give them a new way to interact. And doing those architecture moments that I did for the museum, as well as Fires of Brantford, which is an interactive exhibit on our website. Those are all ways that we can give back to the community and give them some content and something to look at and engage with that's much happier.
Well, I can't wait to see what's next. And I guess in a way, right now we're making history that will be preserved at your organization. So.
Correct.
Well, thank you again for coming on the show, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Take care.